Welcome to the Business Innovators Podcast. So on this podcast, we curate our guests to find people who are doing amazing things. And often these people are doing things behind the scenes. Not every business was built on social media. In fact, a lot of businesses were built very successfully before social media. And they're the kind of stories that I really like to get from people. So today I feel very privileged and very blessed to have Luke Hendon with me. Welcome, Luke, to the show. I'm very happy to have you on.
Thank you, Aoife. Thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. So there's so many aspects to your story that I really want to get into. But so for an introduction to the audience, you are what I would call a serial entrepreneur, right? Being someone who has had multiple different businesses across multiple different industries. I want you to talk to me a little about where did that appetite for that entrepreneurial spirit come from?
Yeah, great question. It started probably at the age of around 13. I can remember being a kid and just wanting to help around the house, help at my grandmother's house, just help at my friends' dad's businesses. Like, there was all these different things I wanted to do. So I just always wanted to do something as a kid. I always wanted to be involved in something to keep myself busy because my mind was just always running. So I always found myself wanting to help out, help other people and serve. So that's like where it started at probably the age of 13 or 14 years old.
Okay, and so you grew up in Georgia?
I did, yeah. Warner Robins, Georgia.
Okay, and then were your family entrepreneurs, or are you the first entrepreneur in the family?
That's a good question. My family was not entrepreneurs, other than my grandfather, which he was born on the same day as me. I never met him. Excuse me, my great-grandfather. He was born on the same day as me. I never met him, though. But he had a church in Thomaston, Georgia. He had a grocery store called Sullivan's. And I think he was
Very
an
Irish.
entrepreneur, a very Irish background on my mom's side. So I think he was an entrepreneur for sure. And he happened to be born on the same day as me. Like I said, never met him. He was my great-grandfather, but that's probably where that spirit came from.
So you grew up in Georgia, not coming from an entrepreneurial family, but always with the desire to want to go out and be involved in things. What was your first journey into entrepreneurship? What was the first business you ever created?
Yeah, so my first business I ever created was a roofing and restoration company.
Okay.
It was called Maxis. It was a multi-state roofing company where we chased hailstorms. We were storm chasers is what they call us, but I called it helping a lot of people after a disaster happened.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And even in the current climate, it seems to be that business. No, I don't want to say that the business is booming, but it is booming with what we're seeing with the climate. So are you still involved in the roofing industry, or have you moved out of that?
Yeah, I'm still involved, not on the roofing side as far as the contractor. I hung up my contractor hard hat because it's a lot to deal with when you're a roofing contractor. Cash flow is always a big thing. You got to pay for the supplies, pay for your labor, your crews. Those people need money every week, obviously, because they're week to week. And it's one of those things where the insurance company, they hold checks back sometimes. And that's tricky because if you're working claims and insurance claims, the insurance, they release a little bit of money on the front end, but they hold back what is called depreciation. So cash flow for the roofing company can be a little tight sometimes, and I understand that. So not to say I got out of the business because of that, but there's a whole other story that we'll probably get into with that. But I am still in the industry. I own a public adjusting firm now. I started that firm back in 2019 after Hurricane Michael. And it's been pretty successful. We're going on year 6. Will be next March.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about what's in the scope of public adjusting and how you've grown and scaled that business.
Absolutely, yeah. Our company's Precision Claims. We basically specialize in navigating complex insurance property loss claims. So catastrophic losses from hurricanes, tornadoes, anything that can happen to a property that's covered under insurance, our firm can actually take care of it for those people so they don't have to deal with that, right? Because the last thing they need to do when they lose their home or they're displaced from their home is deal with the insurance company giving them a hard time. We step in and represent those homeowners so that they have the best representation to get the claim settled and get paid out fairly. That's what we do.
Excellent. And I think more so than ever, that's really needed now. I actually saw someone speaking on it on Instagram today. They were doing a story and they were talking about how many people are having problems actually getting these payouts from the insurance on the back of the last 2 hurricanes.
Yeah, it's tragic. And I live in Florida now. I'm a resident of Florida. So I understand what a lot of the people are going through. I was actually on site in Tampa after the first hurricane happened, Hurricane Helene, helping a client after a flood claim. Luckily, he had flood insurance. A lot of people didn't. That's very sad, because who would have thought those surges would have went as far down as Tampa, from all the way in Tallahassee, surges of 12, 15 feet down to Tampa. No one was expecting that. A lot of the people I know that are down there, they live on the coastal side of Tampa. They live on the beach side. Their houses were flooded. I've talked to many of them, and they're all displaced, and they're dealing with it right now. The flood insurance only covers up to a certain amount. Most of it's anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000, and that's it. And usually that's not going to pay for the damages when your house gets completely flooded. So it was a pretty tragic situation. And I actually had to leave pretty quickly after I went down for Helene, because Milton came in literally 5 days after. So I showed up to Tampa to look at the claim for my friend, and literally had to leave the next day because Milton was on the way. Yeah.
So when you were in, because I know we've talked about a lot of work within spirituality and having an emotional intelligence. When you're in those environments and you're dealing with people who've pretty much lost everything, aside from maybe a little bit of hope, how do you manage those dynamics and those relationships to make sure that these people do feel supported? Because that's a skill in itself.
Yeah, it is a skill set. And what I've learned is you have to listen. And at the end of the day, we're dealing with a person here that has a lot that they've just lost. And we have a lot of compassion for that, because I've worked several different hurricanes, and I've seen the disaster that it leaves behind, where all of someone's contents are literally on the side of the street. They've lost everything. And there's a lot of emotional energy that comes in that we have to learn how to deal with as well when we're dealing with our clients, because we're trying to help them navigate their lives now after a disaster. And the main thing you do is you listen to your client, you listen to their needs, and you offer support. And however that looks, obviously, and whatever we can offer, we offer. But for the most part, we help them navigate the insurance claims process. We try to get them back into their homes as quickly as possible. We try to get the settlements paid out properly so that people are not displaced. And that's the key to this business, obviously, is making sure that our clients are taken care of and they get back in their homes and they can get back to normal life.
Perfect. And how many states are you in right now?
Right now, we're mainly focused on the Southeast. We're Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Florida. I have a few other licenses in different states, but we're mainly focused in the Southeast.
Okay, so now we had the roofing company, and now we've moved into the public adjusting company. What was the transition? I know we talked about, obviously, the idea of the roofing, and we've had many conversations about being an entrepreneur and then being you're responsible for so many things, especially as you grow and scale the company. But that, I know, was maybe one of the factors, but what other factor made you shift the industry?
Yeah, so the other factor was I got diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma in 2011. That was when I had my roofing company. My first son, Isaiah, was 3 years old when that happened. I had a pretty large size roofing company then. Wasn't a huge company, but decent. I had pretty much anything you could possibly want, cars, houses, stuff like that. And after that diagnosis, it just really brought me to my knees, and literally where I was praying on my face every day, because the doctor told me I had a 30% chance to live after I got diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma, and I was 27 years old at the time. And all of this stuff really that I had in my life, all the physical stuff, really didn't matter anymore. Like as far as the materialistic stuff, all that mattered was my health at that time. So it really made me go internal and start really focusing on what's inside and what's inside of Luke. What does Luke really need to do? What is Luke's body trying to tell him right now? What I realized from that is that I needed to slow down. My body was telling me to slow down. I feel like God was telling me to slow down because I had so many different things going on. I had a multi-state business. I had all these employees everywhere. I had company trucks that were wrapped. I had anything you can imagine, right? All this stuff going on, all this overhead cost. And it was just a lot to manage. And at that time when I was 27, social media wasn't really a huge thing. There wasn't as many of these coaches out there that could teach you how to cope with things, right? All that wasn't out there like it is today. And today you have all these different channels and people you can follow, and anything from breath work to cold plunging and all these things. But we didn't have all those tools back then. I built a business door to door. I didn't have all the marketing and online marketing and social media where we went door to door. It was harder when I was in business because I started in 2007-8. So there wasn't a lot where you could go out and just advertise and create wealth that quickly. So we had to really grind for what we got. But that cancer diagnosis is really what kind of set the stage for me to slow down and step back a little bit and start re-looking at the things that were important in my life. Because at the end of the day, happiness and being present in the moment is the key. with those that you love and those that you're around. Because if you don't have that, you have nothing. If you're focused on all the wrong things and all the materialistic things, at the end of the day, it's just going to leave you empty. So you have to go within and you have to really trust that, hey, God's going to look out for me no matter what.
Mm-hmm. A lot of entrepreneurs fall into that trap, myself included. Mm-hmm. And as I slowly try to claw my way out of allowing the material and the money to become the driving force of what we believe are indicators of success. Yeah. And social media has amplified that, because you look on social media, everyone's got their supercars and their big house and their planes and their yachts. And we've discussed this on this podcast many times about how much a lot of that is falsified. Yeah. However, there's like this societal pressure for you to be all these things encompassing. And what I've noticed, and I see a lot, more so now that I'm in the US as opposed to Europe, is how many people allow their health to suffer in the pursuit of that, acquiring those materialistic things and in the pursuit of wealth. And then they forget that health is real wealth, because you can think you have 100 problems until someone comes and tells you have a problem with your health, and then you have one problem.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about how did you cope with getting everything and having all of the material things, and then getting the curveball from God or whatever. We talked about God humbling people, right? Yes. And how that he has a habit of doing that. How did you manage that? Because that takes a lot of internal to be able to come out the other side of that. So what tools, strategies did you use to manage that?
Yeah, so I basically was very humbled by that experience. At that time, I learned that I was big into my ego. I was chasing the money of what I thought was going to make me happy. And what I learned quickly after that experience is that I had to go within and truly consult with myself, my own unconscious mind. I had to listen to my body, listen to what my body was telling me. I really got back into a deep level prayer, reading my Bible that my grandmother gave me, which was something that I've held on to for a very long time, since she's passed away now in 2013. And I really just started speaking the opposite from what the doctor told me. I shifted my diet. I shifted my nutrition. I shifted my mindset. I didn't allow anyone around me to speak that I had cancer. I almost got aggressive in the point of, it was almost fanatical to where I had to attack that pretty seriously when someone tells you you're going to die. Yeah. So I shifted a 180 and just went within myself and just prayed every day and asked God and the Creator to just heal me of this. Let this be gone. Let this be no more. Whatever she said is not even true. Let it be just totally just evaporated away. I just spoke prayer and I spoke scriptures over my life. I spoke the things that were opposite from what they were telling me. I did that every single day. I literally woke up every day. I would be on my face in my closet praying, and I literally just went inside, and I almost was I basically had to shut everything out of my life. And I learned that when I did that, I was able to get quiet enough. I was journaling a lot. I was just taking that time that I truly needed, because I wasn't giving that time to myself. And that's what my body was trying to tell me, that, hey, you need to slow down a little bit. You need to smell the flowers, like they say, right? Smell the roses. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy the ride, right? Yeah, we enjoy all this material stuff that we can accumulate, and the money's a great thing, yeah, and I'm sure cars and boats and all, that's cool and all, and that's great and all, but at the end of the day, like you said, health is the true wealth. If you don't have your health, you have nothing. What's going to happen when your health goes down the tubes and you've accumulated all this wealth? You can't even enjoy it anymore. You know why? Because you've literally just pissed all your health away, because you've lived a life of not sleeping, eating bad food, whatever, entertaining, drinking, whatever it is, right? These things that just happen when you travel and you network. It's part of business. It's part of life, right? And we get sucked into that sometimes. But right now, what really matters is getting back into your heart space, getting back into your internal body so that you can stay grounded and centered within yourself. And that's what I did. I basically just went within and I started getting really in tune with everything I was putting in my body. everything I was listening to, everything I was watching, and everything I was saying. And when I did, those things started shifting and changing for me. And that's where things truly left an imprint on me to where I look at everything differently now. I don't let business control me anymore to the point of it's going to wreck my health. I will divorce a company immediately if I have to. And I don't care what I lose because I know how to rebuild it all. I've done it 3 times now. I've lost everything, rebuilt everything 3 different times now. And at the end of the day, it's not about the money. It's not about all this other stuff that comes with buying all this material stuff. It's about the experience and the relationships that you build, and it's about being present in those relationships and those moments that you have. And that's the key to everything is what I've learned from me. And that's literally what I did.
So much in that I want to unpack.
Yeah.
So the first point I want to unpack is the idea of being super mindful about what you allow in your space, right? And when I say space, the proximity of it, whether that's who you're around, the energy that you allow, other people's emotions, the news that you take in, like the TV, all of these kind of things. Because most people don't realize all of those things are influencing you. And the idea that you start, because I spend an inordinate amount of time by myself, and I often get feedback from people we're concerned that you can spend that much time by yourself and be good. Yeah. And I'm like, but I enjoy my own company. My mind is busy all of the time, and I'm always reflecting and trying to learn and trying to analyze and trying to get different perspectives. But a lot of people avoid being by themselves.
I know. Just to run from being by myself.
Interesting.
I didn't want to be alone. I literally did not like being alone. I would get FOMO. I'd see my friends out, and I'm like, oh, I got to go out. I always thought that I had to chase something external. Everything was already within.
Yeah.
It just took me to realize it. It took me to take the time to get quiet and to listen to myself and realize that, hey, I've got it all right here in my heart. It's already here. Literally. It's in everybody. No matter how broken you feel, no matter how fragmented you feel, no matter how hurt you feel, it's all right here inside of you, and you just have to get quiet and listen to what your body's telling you. I had a close friend of mine just take his life about a month ago. When I heard that news, I couldn't even believe it. I was literally talking to him every day. Didn't tell me anything about what was going on. And I've known this guy for several years now, built a great relationship with him. And he took his life about a month ago, and I couldn't believe it. Literally shook me. And I wish he would have just said something to me. Because I literally would have flown up there and sat with him and helped him and did whatever it took. Because if I would have known that, I would have literally done everything I could to prevent that from happening. Not that I can stop anything from someone else doing. Everyone has their own choice in life to do whatever they want to do. But I just wish that he would have told me that, because I had no clue that he was suffering like that. And a lot of people are suffering like that, and they're quiet. Yeah. And the problem is that they don't need to be quiet. They need to find someone that they can trust, which is not always the easiest thing to do, but they need to find someone they can trust so they can talk and they can get that out of them. Because when you hold in all of those feelings, all of the things that have happened, all those traumas, and everyone's been through it in their life, right? We've all been through stuff, right? We're all experienced this. We're all in this human experience together in this meat suit. That's not always easy to navigate, but we have to be able to release those things, and we have to be able to somehow let things go, forgive and forget, leave the past in the past, and continue to move forward. But really the true present is being presence in the present moment, right? That's the gift of life, is being present, because that's all we have is this moment right now. We don't know tomorrow. We don't know a year from now. We have right now, and we can choose what we're going to do right now. And it's all about controlling the controllables, controlling what you eat, controlling what you hear, controlling who's around you. Who are you allowing to speak into your life? Be mindful of that. Listen to what they're saying. Truly listen to it. If you tap into that, you can feel it. You can feel those energies. You can feel that frequency. There's a lot of power in if you just get present in your body, if you get grounded. You can just go out and put your bare feet on the earth and get grounded. It's that simple. You don't have to do all this other stuff that's out there. Go get barefoot, get on the earth, listen to what your body's telling you. Tap in to whatever it is that you tap into. If you have that higher power, tap into it and just get quiet, because that's the key, is getting quiet with yourself. And I've learned to find peace in that now. because there's so much noise out there these days, from social media to the news to life to just everything. Everyone's trying to grab something from you, this attention, this energy. And at the end of the day, hey, listen, like that's cool and all, and that's great and all, but you got to go within. You got to go within and listen. And that's where you're going to that's where you're going to find the true gift.
When it comes to self-development and going, I've spent many years reading and training and learning, but that is really the truth of it, right? The learning comes in the silence, right? The learning comes in learning how to respond, not react, right? And then that space comes from taking that pause and grabbing that silence between what happens and how you react to what happens. And I find myself, as I mature more and go through more things, now being less reactive to other people's situations, and not going, this doesn't mean anything about me, this is more of a reflection about what's going on for you. And then if I can decouple myself from the situation and give myself another perspective to look at it differently, I think we can see what people are going through a little bit differently. But to arrive at that destination, and there's never a destination, to be honest, because the minute you think you don't know.
Right, 100%. Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's always a learning.
Yes.
But it's to be able to arrive at that destination when you can have compassion and empathy and try to put yourself in that other person's shoes to be like, where are they coming from? And maybe it's just that they haven't yet arrived where they realize that the silence is where the success really is.
That's right. Yeah. I think we're all experiencing at times a mirror when we meet people. I heard it one time, you always meet, when you meet people, you're meeting either a past, present, or future version of yourself. I think it's a mirror, and I don't know exactly how to explain that, but I've had these interesting encounters with people that there was just like total alignment, very similar life paths, very similar situations happening, or things that I see in them where I'm like, man, that seems like me in 10 years. And I think it all boils down to when you do get in true alignment with yourself, you're going to attract that tribe of people that you're supposed to attract, right? And the people that are not in that vibrational frequency with you are going to literally fall away. Yeah. They're not going to be able to keep up because they're in that old pattern. And not to say, hey, we're trying to be mean to people or anything like that, but you just basically sometimes outgrow old relationships. And that happens in life. And when you outgrow those old relationships, you have to look at those things and send love from a distance. And at the end of the day, all you can do is control what you can control, right? React how you're supposed to react, right? That's all we can do is control our own selves, right? And put positive energy out there. And at the end of the day, those are the things that matter, is just making sure that you're living your truth, your authentic self. Because if you're not doing that, you're not being true to yourself. And you have to be true to yourself, and that's it. Because when we pass out of this body, it's just going to be us leaving. It's not going to be anybody else. It's going to be you there, and then that's it. And then that's what we have to realize. And if you can get centered and grounded within yourself, the more you're centered and grounded, the more you're going to be able to stand firm within yourself and be able to put that energy out there to other people so that they can feel it.
Like 2 points on that, because I wrote a book called How to Think Yourself Attractive. And the thesis and the antithesis was attractiveness is mental as much as it is physical. But one of the chapters I wrote in the book was about social agreements and these unconscious social agreements. So whether you realize it or not, when you're with people, you have an unconscious social agreement with them. You behave this way and I behave that way, and that's how our union is in friendship, relationship, partners, business. As you evolve those social agreements and as you change, often start to fall apart, and you can have people upset and angry with you because you're changing. And it, like, I love what you said, it doesn't have to be a conflict because you can respect where they are and, like you say, love them from a distance and say it doesn't always have to be a negative breakup or a catastrophic fight or argument. It's just I am evolving and growing and changing, and of course I want you to come with me, but I'm prepared to go even if you don't come.
That's right.
And then I think what can happen often, like you said, those relationships just tend to fade away because you're no
Yeah.
longer in alignment with
That's
that
right.
person.
Yeah.
And I think when you're growing and scaling companies and businesses, that happens more. They say every level has a new devil that you have to deal with. And then the more levels of wealth that you come, the bigger your team, the more you're either outgrowing partners, people, or moving on to different things. And unfortunately, not everyone is always going to be happy for you.
Right.
So I want to talk the other point that you raised about losing it all, getting it back. And you said 3 times. Talk to me about the resilience that as an entrepreneur, as a human being, because a lot of the entrepreneurs I talk about now really do have a solid spiritual practice. I think I should change the podcast to be the spiritual entrepreneurs or something, because I seem to be attracting that type of person. But talk to me about the resilience of what that's like to lose it all and then build it and then lose it again. And
Yeah, it's heavy when you're experiencing it, and once you experience it one time, you think that it's almost as if you feel like you can't do it again, right? Because that energy that you expended to create that was so much energy, right? Just to develop that, just to create a company, you put so much time and energy into it. It's endless hours. It never shuts off. That company that I first created and shut down manually on my own, it was basically a company that was like my little infant baby, my child, and I built it from nothing. And letting that go was not an easy experience. At that time, I basically was going through a lot. I had my business, and I was trying to deal with the cancer diagnosis, now a pregnant girlfriend, and that was a lot to deal with. And I ended up a couple months after that, I basically lost my mind because I had so much stress on my plate. I lost my mind for a little while, and I went into psychosis. And I think it's because of all the stress I was dealing with. And I rebounded from that. It took me about a year. Okay, I had my manager at the time was running my company. His name's Chris Horga. He actually, before that happened with the psychosis, I said, "Hey, I need you to take over because I've got too much going on." I was too worried about this cancer diagnosis. The manager at the time was embezzling money from me. I called her stealing. She quit with no notice. Pregnant girlfriend, all of this stuff. I felt like my world was just crumbling into pieces. I think my mind was just needed a break, right? So that whole year, 2012, I basically was not myself. I literally barely remember it. I remember bits and pieces of it. I came back about a year after that, and I came back into myself even stronger. I just closed the company because I said, man, you know what? I got to let this one go. And I just divorced that business and got out of that company. And I went on a path for about 5 years of just being a kind of a freelance guy where I sold roofs for buddies that had companies. I would travel around, chase hailstorms. And I got to a point where I got that itch again where I was like, I want to start another company. And this was right after Hurricane Michael. I went to Hurricane Michael in 2018, worked that storm for 6 months. I got the itch again, though, to start another company. And that's how I birthed this whole Precision Claims in 2019. So long and short, rebounding from the first loss was actually the biggest blessing because it taught me how to learn to be more frugal and to be more mindful about where I spend my money. So now I've rebuilt even stronger. I have investments. I've put money into properties. I've actually made better decisions financially, where when I had my first company, I was buying all the things, going to all the places, spending all the money, paying for everything for all the people around me in my life. And guess what? Most of those people aren't even around anymore. Yeah. You know why? Because they were riding along and basically on the ride. And that's okay because things like that happen. But at the end of the day, what I learned from it is that you have to be mindful of who you surround yourself with. And if you have the right team in place, it's going to always have a support system for you so that you can propel and get the momentum going again. And it's all about momentum in business, as probably. So that was the learning I took from the first loss of my first company. And there was another loss in between there with another company. Long and short, it was an experience that really taught me a lot, and it taught me how to be a lot more frugal and mindful about my surroundings and how I spent money.
I think it's a very important point for entrepreneurs watching this podcast. And now that I'm around like higher levels and levels of business, what I've realized is they will divorce a company and shut it down very easily if it's non-performant, too much energy, too much time. But when we're the entrepreneur and we've created it, I think a lot of people hold on so tightly long after they should have just said, you know what, this is not working. Either it's not working financially, or it's not working physically, or it's not working emotionally for me as the business owner. But it's then people perceive that as a failure. But sometimes it's just a bump in the road that you've got to actually go through. You fail your way. Todd always says, he said, I failed my way to success.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I think a lot of us entrepreneurs have way more failures than we do successes, because we've tried so many different businesses and failed so many times. And then all of a sudden you hit one and you're like, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to be. Yeah. Wow. And it's amazing. And like you said, sometimes you got to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations in life. And if you keep holding on to it, sometimes that wound keeps reopening. And it's, hey, you know what? Just sometimes rip the Band-Aid off and just let it go.
And just let it go and allow, we had this conversation coming in the car, the exact same thing about the idea of sometimes we've got to fire clients, right? Because it's too much time and energy.
Yes.
But knowing that, okay, I may take a loss here, but you've got to look at what is the equivalent gain of mental energy, time, focus, and attention, that you may actually be able to put your energy on something else. But if you're continuing to flog a dead horse and trying to and you're hemorrhaging when I talk to people and I ask them and they're just hemorrhaging cash. They're not even breaking even. They're like, yeah, but I'll just put another 20,000 in, or another 50,000 in, or another 100,000. And in my mind, I'm like, you would really just be, and I get, right, not everything is profitable immediately.
Right. Yeah.
However, I think after a 12, 24-month period, you're getting a sense of, and if you're still a solopreneur, it's different if you've got money and investors and you've got VC capital. But if you're bankrolling it by yourself, and you're living it on credit cards and bank loans and SBAs and all of that, there is a moment of reflection that you have to take to go, am I really making the right choices here? And that's scary, because failure is scary.
Yes.
And failure is scary, in my opinion, for two reasons. One, because your ego doesn't want to think it got it wrong.
Right.
And then there's the other side, oh my God, what will other people think?
100%. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You nailed it. And what it boils down to with that, I would say, is that at the end of the day, you can't worry about what others think about what's going on in your life. There are some people you need to worry about what they think, obviously, in your life. I'm sure everybody has those people where you need to be mindful of what they think, because we're all in business and we're all trying to make a living here and we're all trying to do the right thing and be the best versions of ourselves. But yeah, I like to say in failure forward almost until you get into that role of, man, I made it finally. Fail yourself into success. And that's all about not quitting. Like buying a stock, right? You may have bought a stock and it did well and all of a sudden it dropped. But listen, if you don't sell that stock, you never lose. It could bounce back. So if you hold it, hey, you never know. It could come back. That's what it's all about, is just continuing to press forward and just continuing to create that drive and momentum again, and setting those habits in place that are what align you with those things. Because having healthy habits, healthy routines, I think, are key to keep yourself to where you can stay focused on what you're trying to do in this life.
Yeah, because I always say failure is just simply feedback. But then when we lean into, and like I said, the entrepreneurs I'm attracting into it, the ability to be by yourself, trust yourself, trust your own intuition, trust your own inner guidance, is really one of the determining factors of how you will relate or what you will make a failure in your life mean. If you look at it and you go, yeah, that didn't go right, but it went wrong because blah, 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 blah. Now I'm going to course correct and I'm going to try it a little bit like that. And you can, like I said, decouple yourself from the failure. So the failure is not your failure. Right. The failure is a failure in the process or in the system or in the way that you implement it. I think too many people take it so personally that they're a failure. And I'm like, just because your business failed doesn't mean that you're a failure. You've just got to have that relationship with yourself to be able to identify. Just because that happens doesn't mean that means something about me.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I want to talk about what you just said, how they identify with their business. That's one thing I've learned as well. Just in anything, you need to be your own identity, because we are all our own individual people. So when you identify with a business to where that's literally who you are, and if you lose that, it's like you lost yourself, that's a problem. You are yourself, and that's it. And you have to separate that identity from the business, from your partner in life, from everything. You have to be your own self, right? And you have to live your truth, and you have to be basically who you are, no matter what happens, no matter who leaves, no matter what business you lose, no matter who's in your life, who's out of your life. You can't allow those things to dictate your emotional state. And a lot of people get caught up in that. Even myself did. I identified myself with my company, the first company I had, because you know what? I thought, hey, that's who I am, right? That's who I am, right? And that's what I realized is, hey, you have to be able to divorce some things and let go of some things to be able to make sure that you have that peace of mind and you can stay who you are and not feel fragmented from a loss. You're still your whole self no matter what. Even though you may not feel that way all the time, you are who you are. And at the end of the day, nothing can take that away from you. I can't take a piece of you just like you can't take a piece of me. You're always going to be your whole self, no matter how we feel on the inside. And that's what the key is to making sure that you have that separation to where things don't control you, no matter the outcome.
Super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have one other venture that you're moving in towards now. I'm sure there's going to be many more in the tattoo space, because I know you've recently started. So you got your first tattoo at what age?
Yeah, 40.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
40, yeah.
And what's been happening since the first one?
I got the first one, and I was like, yeah, this. And there was just something about it. It was like this euphoria that I felt like you get to where you like enjoy the pain a little bit. It's weird to say that, but I don't know. I got to the point where I was like, I liked it. And then I was like, I want another one, like a year later. So I found a really good artist on Instagram. He was a couple people had given him a shout out, and he's a good friend of mine. His name is Stevo. Stevo Tattoo is his Instagram, but he's from Malta. He's an awesome homie. I messaged him. He was taking on some clients. I said, hey, I love your work, love what you do, and love to work with you on a new piece. And he's like, hey, we got on a call, FaceTime, and he's like, what's up, brother? Just had a good talk. He's like, what do you have in mind? I said, man, I think I want to do a leg piece at first. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, no, let's just do a back. So I did a full back piece with him, and it was a 52-hour process. When you work with an artist like that for that amount of time, you get to know each other very well. And we built a very strong relationship. We're very close friends now, and we actually started a business together. And we're basically creating a tattoo aftercare, skincare line to heal tattoos and for the tattoo space. And it's more of a high-end line. The branding and marketing is going to be on point. It's going to be something that the industry's never seen. And we've got some actual compounds in our products that are new that no one else is using. So it's going to differentiate us. It's backed by science. It's backed by patents. Super excited to bring it to the world. Hoping to have that in the next 4 to 6 months ready to launch. So very exciting things are coming.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. And again, it's like a diversification, but you're building businesses in niches that you're passionate about and that you're aligned to. And I think that's a very important point for if you're going to create something or decide to create a business, try to make it doing something that you enjoy doing, right? Don't fall into the trap of go, oh, there's money in this, and then you go and do that, because when you're doing 100-hour weeks, you're not going to care about how much money is there. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's just not worth it, right? It is not. And it'll just eat away at you on the inside, like your energy, your vibration, everything gets turned down when you're doing things you do. Like, life is way too short, and you're a testament to go how it was exposed to you. It could be shorter. And the reality check that comes with that. So just on our final question, if you were to go back and give your younger entrepreneur self some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, so if I could talk to my younger entrepreneur self, I would tell him, hey man, everything's going to be okay. The things that you're worried about now, you're not going to think about in 10 years. And at the end of the day, you did your best. So I'm proud of you.
And I think that's what a lot of people really crave, is someone to support them and be proud of them. And like, you can do all of these things for people, but sometimes they just want you to believe in them and say, I am proud of you.
Yes, 100%. And they just want you to sometimes just listen.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just got to vent sometimes, and that you just want someone to hear you. Mm-hmm. You don't even want feedback sometimes. No. I just want you to listen. I just need to get it out of me.
Yeah.
And you have certain people like that, I'm sure, in your life, and I do too, that can hold that space. And
yeah.
That's important because that's a support system that we all need.
Oftentimes when I'm talking to my partner, I'll say to him, I'm not listening for you to I'm not telling you this for you to solution it. Right. I just want you to listen.
Yes.
Because the natural is to try to go and solution. I'm not looking for a solution. I'm just looking for an ear.
I've said the same thing to mine, and she always wants to fix things, and it turns into this whole thing. But I tell her, hey, sometimes I just want you to listen, and I don't even need you to talk. It's cool. Just hear me.
Yeah.
And it's intense sometimes when you're going through life, because when I vent, it can be heavy because I take on a lot of things. But yeah, that's the key. If you've got somebody that can just get behind you and support you in all your endeavors and just be your cheerleader and say, hey, I got you. I got your back. Don't worry. I'm going to just be here for you no matter what. Let's freaking do this. That's what you have to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is one of my favorite sayings. I love when people say it to me, and I'm always saying it to other people. I'm like, I got you.
Yes.
I got you. I think it says so much. With so little words.
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. That's all I got to know. I got you.
Yeah. So simple.
It's so simple.
That's amazing. Luke, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Like I say, I love this. The more that I'm moving in these circles with entrepreneurs, how many of them have a really solid spiritual practice, and the level of EQ that I'm seeing with the people who've created like massive levels of success. There is a
direct
correlation.
100%, yeah, there is. Yeah, it's all about going within and just making sure that you do what you have to do to keep yourself straight. So,
perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for tuning into the Business Innovators Podcast. Please feel free to comment, share, subscribe. Give us some feedback on the podcast. We'd love to hear more from you, and I'll tag Luke in the video so you can make sure that you can reach out and connect with him. So thank you very much for taking your time to listen to us and tune in. We deliver these podcasts every single week, and I'm looking forward to having more spiritual entrepreneurs on my podcast.